In part 1 of this series, I challenged you to spend 30 hours on a skill of your choice. My selected skill was to learn hobby electronics. I'm happy to report I just completed 30 hours. What? In this video, I'll share my journey, a tip to remember, a thought to inspire, and what I pulled off with my newfound knowledge. I keep thinking of cool electronic projects to do. Nothing that is rocket science, but still they're above my skill level, and I want to make sure I don't burn the house down. I look for some places to learn. Normally Skillshare is quite helpful, but it had a bunch of super boring videos. I had a lot better luck on YouTube. I found a 31 video series called Beginner Electronics by Code & More. My absolute best find was a book called Make Electronics by Charles Platt, 3rd edition. I really liked his approach. He would have you immediately build a circuit, something simple that you could do. Just right off the bat, he'd show you how to do it before he would explain it. So then after you saw the results of the circuit, he would then explain what was happening. I just really like this approach. Build the circuit, sort of create your own hypothesis, and then have him explain what the heck is happening. At that point, I was ready for the information. I went on vacation recently. I was going to get on a plane, and so I thought, what better time to study electronics than when I've just got all these hours to kill on a plane? So I grabbed a backpack, I loaded up all sorts of electronics, transistors, switches, wires, everything. And then I thought about trying to get through security. So I decided I'll put my electronics in my check-in and then I'll only carry on the book. Can't say bomb on a plane. What I'll say is when I got on the plane, I loaded up my usual downloads of Netflix, YouTube, Skillshare, and I'm proud to say I didn't watch any of it on the trip there or the trip back because I was so focused on studying electronics. And I gotta say, a lot of it was because I was motivated to keep my goal. Which leads me to my next tip. While I was doing all of that studying, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't forgetting anything, and for a long time, I've been thinking about doing some sort of flashcard app, but I haven't really tried it out. There was one that I'd heard mentioned that was called Anki app, A-N-K-I, and there's some sort of fake generic versions. It's free online, but I knew I'd always be using it on my phone, so I bit the bullet. I think it was like $25, but I just figured that's an investment in my knowledge. I'm sure there's some cheaper ones out there, but I just wanted to try this one. And I loved it. I thought it was really good. Had the normal front and back options, but I could also snap pictures. I could blank things out, and as it quizzed, it would just test each of the different ones. The other thing is how frequently you have a card come up in your flashcards. And so as I answer a question, I can just say what frequency I want that question to come back. Like immediately, like I didn't get it at all, or it's like, yeah, I have that one down. Don't hit me with that one again for several days. That's my tip for remembering. I was humming along, studying the book. I was on the ground now. I was into the vacation, and just in the mornings or on little downtime places here and there, I could grab the book and study. Everything was going pretty smoothly, and then bam, I got 104-degree fever. I was super sick, but when I did have just a little bit of energy, I would wander over to that table, flip open the Make book, and start pounding some knowledge. Got my cough drops, got my water, and started learning a little bit more. Which leads me to my inspirational thought. Jennifer shared this cool Instagram with me, link in the description. Your ability to obtain the thing you want is directly correlated with how willing you are to experience its opposite. When you're working out, it makes you feel weak, but you're actually getting stronger. When you're asking questions, when you're trying to learn, you feel dumb. You're actually getting smarter. You have to be okay with being uncomfortable to truly achieve success. One of the things my dad taught me when I was growing up that really stuck with me is he always said, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you get better at it. He talked to me and shared with me, he said, look, as people get older, they stop being willing to look foolish. They stop being willing to be vulnerable, and so they stop learning. They're uncomfortable. They get good at the few things that they got good at, and they're uncomfortable with stepping out of their comfort zone. And so that really stuck with me. As a boy, I vowed right then that I was never going to get uncomfortable. So I embraced looking foolish. I asked the questions. Because of that, I've really enjoyed learning new things. I've gotten better at pushing through that uncomfortable space where I just feel dumb or I feel like I don't know what's happening. And I've learned that if I push through, that the reward truly is there on the other side. Related to this comment is something I remind my son. Sometimes to have a lot of fun later, you've got to not have fun right now. It's not always fun to watch an instructional video. It's sometimes really frustrating to sit there and try to learn animation, push through. But the cool thing is you could be doing lots of cool animations later after that investment of time. It may seem weird, especially if you're trying to learn something fun like playing guitar or singing or painting, to be frustrated and go, why am I doing this? The reason you're doing it is because it's an investment. You invest in yourself and in that time, and then it will yield fruits later. I remember a famous bodybuilding CrossFitter named Ronnie Coleman who said, everybody want to be a doctor, but don't nobody want to read no heavy books. Because we were moving around a lot, it was kind of hard to build the electronics on the move. I was able to build a few little circuits, but there were several that I needed to build when I got home. And so a lot of my knowledge was theoretical as I studied the book before I got home. When I got home, I tried building a few of the circuits. What I really wanted to take on was this project that had me a little stumped. So years ago, I had upgraded this IKEA bookcase and improved it. And one of the last things I did was ran lights along each of the bookshelves, and I hooked it up to a clicker, and so I could click it, and anytime I wanted, the lights would light up when I clicked it. But really, that wasn't a very seamless experience. You had to sit there and grab the clicker and click it and think about it. What I really wanted was for a person to walk into the room, and as they approached the bookcase, for it to light up. And so I knew I needed some sort of sensor for that to happen, and I found a PIR sensor, a passive infrared sensor. I needed to be able to hook it up. But unfortunately, as I read how much amperage, or how much current would go through the sensor, and I realized how much current was going through my bookcase, I realized I would need 3 of these sensors to handle the load. So I bought 3, and I wired them up, and I didn't even bother hiding them because I knew that someday I could do better, but they looked dumb to have 3 sensors. And then the really annoying problem was they're analog, they're not digital, and so you can set the timer, but it was really hard for me to get the timers right for all 3. What would happen is they would turn on, but then one bank of lights would turn off, and then another would turn off. And so you just had these times where half of the bookcase was dark and half of it was lit up. That just didn't look great. On the plane, I read all about a thing called a relay, which uses this little whisper current to flick over a switch and launch a larger current. And I thought that's what I needed to use on the bookcase. But when I got home, with my newfound knowledge, I was able to take out my meter and go and measure how much current was actually being drawn by my particular setup. I was able to figure out that one single PIR sensor was sufficient for the whole setup. And so I was able to simplify the circuit. I pulled those out, I extended the wires, I put the sensor outside of the bookcase entirely and up to the side. So now when you walk in the room, wing, the light comes on, and it's just cool. So all the lights come on at the same time, all the lights come off at the same time. Mission accomplished. So there you go. That was my 30-hour journey. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I set the goal. I feel a lot stronger in my electronics foundation. I wish you the best of luck in your projects. Let me know how those go. This was my journey. If you missed episode 1 and 2 of this series, I highly recommend checking those out, as they're full of great ideas to help you along your skill journey.